Okay, if you have not, please sign in to the document. Okay, we're done with at least 2 items. New faces. Any new faces? Looking around. Oh, Jason. Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Do you want to give us a quick intro? Anything you want to say?
Sure. Yeah, I was on a different team in Heroku. I was on the web services team working on API and related components, and just last week I switched over to Heroku DX. So just new and trying to make sense of everything.
Jason's working with Jesse and Travis and those folks.
Right.
Awesome. Welcome, welcome. All right, moving on to release planning and updates.
I think on the lifecycle side, we're still targeting the end of this week. It's only 2 major issues left, then we have drafts for both of them, so it seems realistic. If anything goes wrong, it'll be early next week, but probably no later than that.
What's the version number of that going to be?
010.
Cool. I don't see David here, so I'll speak on behalf of PAC. I know we had, during our subteam sync, we talked about potentially pushing back the release date based on the holidays and a lot of vacations going on. We are going to aim for having a RC candidate beforehand, just in case there is any sort of testing that we'd like to do before the holidays. But yeah. More to come on those specific dates, most likely next week. All right, any other release updates? Cool, we could jump over to reviewing our outstanding RFCs. Go ahead and share my screen. Okay, starting at the top, distribution for the Buildpack registry search API. Don't believe I saw Travis in here. Do we know the status up on this one?
I think he replied to most of the feedback, and there might be some more.
Yeah, I do request that, since it was a lot of the usual suspects commenting on that, if you are satisfied, making sure that you resolve the conversation so it clears things out a little bit, makes it a little easier to figure out what's outstanding.
Cool. Yep. Still a lot of check marks left here. Okay, moving on. Create Stackify repo. Is this?
Put that on the agenda.
Perfect. Cool. Add image manifest size to report TOML. Believe this was pretty close to approved. Okay, Joe and Steven.
Yeah, Joe, is there anything outstanding that's causing you to not vote on that?
Nope, I think I just need to review it.
Copy that.
Cool.
Oh,
Ben,
yeah. No, I've reviewed this, and I just need to vote on it, actually, because I see my comments were addressed. I think I even said the same damn thing last week, so my bad.
Cool. And Ben, if you could stay on top of them.
Of Hacking Joe.
Yeah. All right. Let's see, application mix-ins. What is happening with this one?
I think we're waiting on
We're waiting on stack packs, right?
Yeah, this one's,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah,
It's just parked right now.
Okay, so this one's on hold. Do we have a label for that, or should we go back to draft?
We move that? Yeah, should we move that back to draft?
I think
We're
it should
not
be back
reviewing
to
it.
draft.
Sure, draft will work, yeah.
Cool. Let me find that little link somewhere. Okay, there it is.
I've been told it will be turned to button one day.
Someday. All right, that's a draft now. Stack build packs.
It's on the
Just
list for
waiting
today.
Great. Project descriptor
It's draft.
flexibility. Okay, skip that. Layer origin metadata. This has been here for a while. I believe
Yeah,
that
I
was
reached out
okay.
this week to, I believe his name is, yeah, it's Josh. And he said he was going to circle back with his team and figure out whether they want to keep it open or update it. So maybe later this week they'll have an update, but I think we just leave it parked for now. And if it's there next week, we can put it back in draft or something. Or close it.
So Josh isn't on this thread, right? Because that
Correct.
was
Yeah.
Paul.
Yeah, he
Okay.
reached out on the Slack after Paul, left his current or his other place.
I wonder if it's worth mentioning him on this issue just so that we have that inner loop.
Yep, sounds good. I don't know if I know his username, but if it pops up, I'll do it.
Awesome. All right. And then last but not least, offline build packages RFC, aka assets.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that people feel like they can vote on this. I think that there's been some consensus that's been established about how this should work.
Okay, so I think Emily and Steven. Emily, you're here. Do you have any
I
comments?
apologize. Last week I said I'd read through it and give a final vote, but I haven't gotten to it yet. But
Okay.
Not waiting on anything from you. It's just me being delinquent.
I'm good to go also. I just haven't approved.
Great. Looks like we'll get that in soon. All right. Let's see. Now that we're done with all our outstanding RFCs, we can move on to calendar updates. Who wants to take that one on?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot. I just typed it and didn't put my name in. So I wanted to let everyone know, you may have, if you are actually subscribed directly to the calendar invite, we have canceled all of the meetings, leadership meetings and working group meetings. And I think Javier is also going to do the sub-team meetings for the weeks of December 21st and December 28th. So we expect next week to be the last set, and then we'll take 2 weeks off and then reconvene at the beginning of January.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Ben, I believe the next one's yours as well.
It is. Given the leadership meeting we just completed in the hour before this one, I am pleased to announce that we have a new implementation maintainer. Congratulations, Natalie, on your elevation.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Natalie has been an invaluable contributor to the lifecycle for some time now, driving forward a lot of our new work and being heavily involved in giving feedback on all of the work coming in and also writing RFCs to help us improve it in the future. So, well deserved.
Awesome. Congratulations. Okay, moving on. RFC Stackify. Marty, go.
I can share my screen. There are a lot of outstanding comments that took me a while to get to, but I think I addressed all of them. I probably should not have clicked the resolve button. That was my bad. But there are a couple of comments that I got since then. Seemed more about semantics.
Yeah, mine are super bike sheddy, but and I wouldn't probably block on that, but I did want to bring them up.
Yeah, definitely think they were good comments. But I added, I guess the biggest thing was adding this proposed interface. So this was, and then also adding the pack create stack command to this. So the interface for Stackify itself is just a bunch of command line inputs that you could pass in. But then the pack create stack command following convention would have this toml file where you could set all the mixins you want to put on your images, the CA certs, packages, user, group, all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know if there's any more comments people have on this.
I thought it looked good in general. The camel case just sort of caught my eye, but I couldn't actually find any other case of where we have more than one word in a TOML file, so there was no prior art.
Happy to change
We
that.
gotta have it somewhere for run image, right? I think we use dash.
Oh, dash run dash
Yeah, I
image,
think we use dashes, right?
Well, I'll make that change.
I'm not totally
Yeah.
sure if that's true.
The
or
other
not.
one that wasn't quite as cosmetic is the mixins. I guess it's in the file and in the flag, right? But
Yeah.
It won't actually install the mixin. It'll only like add the label. Like these are like pre-existing mixins, right? Yeah, I thought that might be kind of confusing.
Yeah, I think that was a good note. I think mixin labels would probably be a lot clearer. We could maybe add that.
I am curious why we need the key, the phase key. Like, is that not part of the pre-known notation of the prefix? Like the run
Not sure I
colon.
followed.
So like I believe all mixins are just single strings, right? And so why do you need a phase key? Wouldn't that just end up being run colon whatever you added?
Yeah, so this is for the pack create stack command. This is assuming that that under the hood pack would call stackify once for each image. And so in the TOML file, we need to know which image to put which package on or which mixin on. So this would say tell pack to run stackify on the build image with this mixin. Whereas on the run image, run with this mixin in case you wanted to differentiate between mixins and packages based on your image, based on which image.
But
I think
couldn't
what
that be
Javier
reversed?
is calling.
Sorry, go ahead, Emily.
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I think you're probably about to say the same thing. I think in the mixin name, if it starts with run colon, that would mean just do it on the run image already. So we might not need a separate field for phase here.
To my knowledge, we don't enforce that mixins have to start with build colon and run colon, right? Like if they're shared across both images. I guess if they're shared, then it wouldn't have a prefix and then you just apply it to both.
Exactly.
Is the logic.
Versus here, you'd have to label it twice or not put a phase label. So I feel like it just adds more complexity than what we're trying to achieve with mixins in general.
Yeah, no, I like that. That makes a lot of sense. I think
I think Steven actually has an RFC that proposed that change to mixins.
Yeah, okay. I think that's a good note. We could definitely do that with the mixins. I think we'd need the phase for packages still, but for mixins, definitely.
And that prefix is true with mixin sets as well. They're also prefixed with build and run.
I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, the prefix build and run are CNB spec'd, whereas the set is like a sub spec that only applies to the Bionic stack.
Forgive me, I haven't reread this since it was updated. But what are the packages referred to? That's different from mixins.
Mixins, which as Joe pointed out, we should change that to mixin labels. The mixin labels would just be metadata to add, whereas packages would be new packages to actually install on the images.
I wonder if we could do that with, like, just make it mixins. Well, that would kind of screw up your command line flags. But I was going to say you could have like a Boolean, whether it actually installs it or not, or just applies the label. But I think that'd be tough to express in the CLI command.
Or you could make them maybe like for ones that you don't need to install, you could put them as a subfield of build or run, sort of describing here are mixins that are already in this image or whatever. You're describing the base image, right?
Well, you're describing any arbitrary mixins that you would want on your resulting CMB image, which wouldn't always be packages. Like it could be, well, I guess the way we use them in the Bionic stack, it's always packages or sets of packages. But yeah, I mean, you can move it there if that makes more sense. Not too opinionated on where it goes between those options.
Yet another option is like I see the CA certs have like a CA certs.build, right? Instead of having this additional key for each package, what if you kind of group them together in that array, right? So packages.build and fortune would be there and whatever other else, and then packages.run.
Yeah, I just made a comment because we do that in Project Toml as well, but it's reverse. So it's buildpacks. So maybe we do build.ca certs, build.packages, run.packages.
That makes sense.
The only problem with that would be right now, if you leave off the phase, the idea would be that it would go in both. That way you wouldn't have to specify things twice.
Yeah, I think we could still just have like a prefix list packages to do both. Yeah.
So have build.packages, run.packages, and then packages for both.
So then that would be 3 separate fields. Is that correct?
3 separate tables, right?
Yeah, we could do that.
Just a suggestion. I don't have a hard I already did approve on it from my perspective.
How would I guess mixins fit into that table list?
Well, mixins already have their own prefix, so I think they kind of have to abide by the rules we've set elsewhere to make sense for stack
So
authors.
they just like sit off on their own island, right? That don't fit.
Well, they'll
in.
be their own table and then have their own
Yeah.
prefixes. It's just because that's just the way that already works.
I mean, I am curious, like to maybe lean on to Joe's point. What if everything was either packages or mixins, and then because like we have that notation, right? And all these packages, if I'm not mistaken, will also end up creating mixin labels from them, right? So you'll have a cow say mixin applied to the
On
stack.
the Bionic stack, yes. But if you were using a different stack ID, we wouldn't make that mixin because there's no definition for any other stack ID. But the idea here is that the stack ID, ooh, I left that out. The stack ID, I have to add that here, but you could also set a stack ID if you're creating your own stack or something. Which I think I put in the Stackify part and then left out of the Toml. But yeah. Well, we don't have to decide here, I guess, but if people have opinions, maybe you could comment on the RFC. We could try to pick the best of these options that were suggested.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Unless somebody else has any final thoughts, we can move on to the next one.
No, I think you're real close. I know it's annoying to work through these kind of superficial things, but they'll make it better. So thanks for
definitely.
doing that.
Thanks for all the feedback.
All right, moving on to RFC Search API. Travis, Joe.
Yeah, let me share my screen real quick.
Sure.
I had a lot of good feedback from everybody, so thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I did make some changes that I just wanted to quickly highlight, and hopefully, get this into a state where it's ready for voting, which I think it's pretty close. But the things I wanted to mention were that I did make some adjustments and changes to the endpoint. First of which, I simplified the actual search endpoint to just be /search with a query parameter. In addition to that, I also simplified the high-level metadata that gets returned from such a query. to just include namespace, name, version, and then the address. And I also introduced this object called versions. And I made it an object just because I wanted to make it more flexible too, in case I ever wanted to add any higher level metadata to this data structure. But as you can see, it's keyed off of the actual version. And then there's a helper link that will take you to that specific endpoint. So moving on, I think I got some feedback on this one too that I might change, because right now, instead of just having some arbitrary ID, I decided to break this up into namespace name. Javier had some really good feedback on this, so thank you for that. This endpoint, as it shows, will be a namespace and name. And I know Joe had mentioned escaping this and just making it the whole escape thing, the actual ID itself. Which
Yeah,
is
like
a
percent 2F or whatever.
Yeah.
The reason I suggested that is we did it in the V2 Buildpack registry for Heroku. We did that so that you could specify either a UUID or the namespace / name. And if you use a real slash, that's really difficult, if not impossible, to figure out which, like, is your UUID a namespace or, you know, but like right now this API is simple enough that we could do that. But you know, in the future, do we want to future proof it? I don't know. I'm a big fan of using a real slash because it kind of feels very natural, but I just have a small concern about that.
I guess, like, do we expect people to pass UIDs for?
No.
We don't even have UUIDs, right?
Right.
We would have to generate that, yeah. So.
And even so, we would still need, in order for it to be a problem, even with UUIDs, we would need another slash after this that has like version, for example. Oh, you do have that. Actually, you do have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it becomes difficult to know, are you specifying a UUID / version, or is it a namespace / name? It's just a future proofing thing. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the whole reason why we had the ID contain a slash is because we were thinking about how they would be structured in an org fashion, right? And so I feel like by now making it into this like encoded version, it's like might as well have not done that and done something different with the IDs.
Well, it's still is valuable, for example, in the Buildpack URIs, right? Like we would not encode it there. If you're using like CMB : / or URN : registry or whatever. So it's still, I think it still is good there. It's just in this particular case where you're trying to create a RESTful get post API where it gets a little challenging.
I mean, could you not envision where you want to look at all the build packs for a particular namespace or org, right? Like if I want to look up all the Pacato or all the Project Riff build packs, like I would think I'd want that to be.
But then, but then I think you would have get / namespaces / namespace, right? Like if you're being really, really religious about REST.
Yeah, Travis and I talked about that, and it was just like, just use the search API.
That's what we do on the V2 registry.
That's what we were thinking too. Yep, exactly. For now, we figured it would be sufficient to just do a query based on Pacato, Heroku, whatever, and then just get all those namespace bound Buildpack metadata results.
For the search API for inputs, are there other params besides query? Like, can you say I just want namespace equal to Pacato? Like you could imagine maybe someone, like I know for the Heroku case, people name Buildpacks with Heroku in the kind of Buildpack name somewhere. I imagine potentially that can and will be true for Pacato too, as people build ecosystems around those Buildpacks that aren't maintained by the actual Pacato team. Like I want to see just what is maintained by that team. Like, is that a thing I can do, or do I have to use query?
So right now, you just use query because the current implementation is indexing basically all these metadata fields: namespace, name, and address, I believe, are the three. So it would just search whatever that query is set to against those three. But if we wanted to expose like some of these, metadata fields in the form of additional queries, we could do that. Like, I don't have a strong opinion at this point. We could have theoretically namespace equals or name equals.
Or you could end up with some sort of query language, right? Like the GitHub API.
Yeah, so there's definitely some flexibility here. But yeah, for now, I'm just making it just pretty simple.
Yeah, going back to the other conversation about encoding the ID, I mean, I would still be in favor of not doing that, but not
Keeping it
going
like
to die
this.
on the hill. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel too strongly one way or the other. I just want to be really explicit about what the implications are. And the implication is that we can never have a UUID unless we have a different path, completely different path. Maybe that's okay. This is not a critical part of the spec or anything like that. So.
Okay.
Are you going to do versioning at all? I think I asked that in a question on the API.
Yeah, I need to think about that one a little bit more.
Because then, like, to Joe's point, like if we ever want to do that thing, we can either add another endpoint or.
We actually did that with the V2 or the V2 Buildpacks API. The V1, I think we made that mistake, and V2 has the encoded slash.
I anticipate that there will be some form of versioning put in place. There's probably no way around it as it evolves.
Yeah, I would add to this either is it going to be /v1/ or is it like a version variant header thing? Just pick one. I don't get involved in that kind of argument.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Anymore.
Yeah. So one of the things I should highlight here too is I briefly mentioned it. I got rid of like license information and then this description field in the high level. So I got rid of those two, and I also just added a latest version. So my thought behind this is have a more generalized view into a particular build pack. And then if you wanted to look at a specific version, you can use the version endpoint right here. And then we would add, provide those additional metadata fields like the license, the description. I think it was Emily that mentioned that these two things could theoretically change between different versions of the build pack. So to me, it seemed like it made more sense to tie these to a particular version. Like in this case, 041 has this license, it has this description, and then 042 could be something different instead of assuming that it will never change and lock that data at the higher level.
So I have like maybe a few counter arguments to that. Like at the higher level, you're already providing an address to a very specific, to the latest version, right? So like that's one. So like I don't know that
Maybe
having the license.
Yeah, maybe I should remove that then actually.
That's one option. I think I posted a comment on here that I guess what maybe I'd like to see is all of this object here that you get, like the whole object and all its information in the results field, because we're going to display that a lot of that information. And then what that does is from a client side, enables two things: is you could share the same data structure between the search results and the individual get requests. And you could then even further add caching so that when you make a request for any individual object, if you already have it in your cache, you could pull it from things that have already come back through the search result. Right, so like an object or the data of an object should be the same no matter what endpoint you hit, if that makes sense. That's my opinion, and it's a pretty strong opinion.
So you're looking at this one in particular, Javier?
The one for the version. right?
Okay,
So
this
like,
one right here. Okay.
yeah, so like the version, it's not a lot of data. If we had a lot of like, let's say bomb information, stuff like that, maybe, there'd be more of a conversation, but because it is what it is right now, right?
Yeah.
I don't see why this exact same data set can't be returned as the latest in the search
Right here.
result.
Oh, up here, you're saying.
Yeah, like in any and every endpoint that returns a build pack
Yeah.
object.
I see.
And if you look at my comment, I just like put it under like a latest key, just so that it's like nicely, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, let me take a look at that. So you're saying basically have like a latest key that points to a different data structure that has the same information in it?
Yeah, as the one with the very specific version.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah, because like we might want to display the license information during the search results, right? Like there's no reason why we wouldn't want to do that.
But wait, does that requires going and fetching the config blob for that version, right? In order to provide that data?
Yes, which we'll be
so then
doing, right?
But the search can't do that for every build pack returned in the search, right?
I mean, won't it cache it?
Yeah, I was going to say at some point we're going to need a lot of caching here. So
I think, but
is it a pre-optimization, premature optimization? Maybe, I don't know.
I feel like if search is going to return 1,000 build packs and the cache is cold, you can't go fetch that data for all 1,000 of those build packs, or it's going to take 10 minutes to return or something. Why could it be?
I'm not sure that's true.
I mean, don't you just have a database that has this data, Joe?
Yeah.
I thought those were the implementation details that we didn't want to discuss in this, because I mean, this seems very solvable, right?
But this is like the way it is now. You can get away without a cache. And you can't.
But the answer should be we're either going to transfer this data or we're not. I think that's the implication here. If you don't think we should transfer it because we shouldn't need to maintain a cache, then we should just not transfer it. And I don't think that's the situation we want to be in.
You mean including in the version route? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like we are trying to protect this, like even in a cold cache situation, like assume for a moment that we don't put a database behind it. We want to do true caching. Like the goal is to put all of anything that needs to be returned here needs to be in the metadata for in the manifest, right, of the image itself, not as data inside of the image. So I think it will perform anyway, but hey, network problems are network problems. So maybe we don't, we do want to keep a cache to sort of sort that out, but I think we should return it at all times. And it's on the service's level of responsibility to make sure it can respond in a timely manner.
Got it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess what about cold cache case where we're hitting like API limits on Docker Hub? Are we assuming that whatever backends we need to hit to get that information, we can have unlimited access to?
That's one of the things I'm worried about, especially in a world where, like, say there were lots of users publishing many build packs all the time. How likely are we to hit rate limits in the search?
We can solve it with money, which, right? Like,
yeah, but I think we'd have to just should talk about whether we want to do that up front, right, before we just run into it.
I argue that we absolutely do. For like, we're talking about the search API here, but imagine the GUI that sits in front of it and then think about what the GUI for NPM looks like, right? Nobody's skipping listing what the license is of a particular module. Like that's got to be a thing.
Agree.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, I guess like not transferring that data, Joe, like where do you expect, how do you get it and where do you expect to live then? Like it's not going in the index, right? So.
No, yeah, I just mean that like for the search results, you would have to omit that kind of stuff and you'd only see it when you drill down to a single. So you'd only fetch, like if you're going to fetch it, you're only going to fetch it for one.
Yeah.
But I'm backing away.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I
It's
mean,
fine.
I guess
No,
there's
that's okay.
like there's lots of material out there about API design. Like I mean, that's why I think like GraphQL and JSON API and things exist, because I think sometimes you want to leave it to the end user if they actually want to include that data. So you could say like includes like give me the version info or whatever, right? That give me the whole object, not the ref link. So like Pack, for instance, can make that distinction on the client side.
But for the record, we're not going with GraphQL or anything like that, right?
No.
This is definitely not GraphQL.
Okay.
Yeah, no GraphQL.
I was like, okay, start over. Cool. I do have some other questions about the search fields, but I don't know if we're ready to move on to that.
We can. And I know you had some comments in the RFC that I haven't had a chance to look at today, Javier. So sorry if I don't have the context off the top of my head when you talk about it.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I definitely didn't put that comment about the search field, or yeah, so if you go down, there's some search fields and it mentions that it'll search through license and yanked. And I was confused about that. Like, why would the query search for yanked? Am I typing in true or false into the query?
Yeah, it's kind of weird right now because I kind of don't think yank is, well, I don't really know if it is as it is primitively, like right now, like a very user-friendly field. But my intention is to have the ability to search via the search query. Like if, for all the yanked files or non-yanked files, I don't know if, I go back and forth and I honestly don't know if it's going to be useful or not to have the ability to search for yanked and non-yanked or unsupported build packs. So I could go either way, but that's kind of where I was going down the road with that.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking about a capability standpoint, right?
Mhm.
I know this is kind of going into the implementation side, but if the search only has a query parameter, how do I define whether I want yanked or non-yanked, even if you wanted to put this?
Yeah, like right now it just searches for like, if you say query equals false or true, that's kind of what it does.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it is like that.
Yeah. But like, I feel like yanked is kind of weird because I personally I've never referred to things as yanked or unyanked until I started working on this stuff. I always think of supported and unsupported, and I don't know if it's just my lack of exposure to the yanked term. But
so yanked means like retracted, right? So it's not even supported.
Like don't use this version. Yeah, like it's not supported. Yeah. There's something wrong with it, and it's not recommended to use it, or maybe.
Yeah, I don't think humans will be doing that kind of search a lot, but I could imagine automated tools doing that kind of thing, trying to find out.
Yeah.
We used this version and it has now been yanked. Tell me something about this version.
Exactly. That's kind of what I was wondering. Like, say I'm using a build pack and I suspect there might be something wrong with it. Well, let me check if something is wrong with it after the fact. And oh, I shouldn't be using this one. It's been yanked. I'm going to upgrade to a newer version now.
You can imagine that some people might also yank build packs if, for whatever reason, the image at the address doesn't exist anymore, because you can't remove stuff from the index, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So I do wonder for the search fields, for the purpose of querying, right? If from the get-go, namespace and name are sufficient, and then talk about like how to incorporate license and yanked via some sort of query language or additional query parameters.
Yeah.
I don't know how others feel about that.
So what I'm hearing, Javier, is we could maintain the current query, but it only searches against like namespace and name. And then we could potentially introduce an additional query that maybe like supported equals false or true, yanked equals false or true, something like along those lines, or a completely different query language.
I mean, just to solve it for now and get it through, right? Like I feel like maybe we might want to have more discussion, but I just feel like true or false as a query parameter to go to this very specific field is just awkward. Like, this is the true PHP build pack, right? All of a sudden it's yanked, but it comes back as, in the search field. It just doesn't seem intuitive.
It's not intuitive. I think you're correct in that sense. Yeah.
Seems like it should be a query param, but not the query param.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we should call it text instead of queries to make it, or unless we're going to do a query language, right? Like GitHub, where they have like, it would be like yanked : true, or license : MIT, right? Or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like for the standard query description is something, if we're caching it for all the images, we might also want to go over as well. But if we're not fetching it until we're returning results, then it might not work. But if we're fetching it as we're updating whatever the backing store is.
Yeah, maybe we should have more discussion around this, because I don't even know how people feel about yanked as far as an exposed field. Like, would you off the bat assume that, oh, this is yanked, as opposed to maybe using supported, unsupported, deprecated?
Oh, as the word?
Yeah, like if we were to expose it as a separate query, like as itself.
I think whatever's in the index is probably what you want to expose. And then
which is separate from what an HTML page might show.
Yeah. Like you may say something else on the front end side of it, but I think the API should stay pretty close to what is in the spec.
To what's in the metadata. Okay. Sounds good. In addition, really, the only thing I just wanted to shout out about was that I did remove metrics related items. Just, I feel like that's a whole separate discussion that I wanted it to be outside of this RFC. And yeah, that's probably the big one that I've removed those out. So I will fold into this the discussions that we've just had and throw it out there again, maybe tomorrow or some other time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
All right, moving on with the limited time that we have to stack build packs.
Yeah, I wanted to check in on this. Pulling it up right now. I think it's still waiting on Stephen and Emily. But I didn't know if there was anything that there's no comments on there, so I wasn't sure if there's anything I needed to address or if it's just waiting on review.
I feel slightly guilty. I haven't managed to do the final read through yet, but I did comment on the spec stack Buildpacks PR.
Yeah, I saw that.
About the use of the word user space. I wonder if before we merge this RFC, we want to come up with a different word for that, because I think it has.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's used in the RFC. I'm fine. I don't really have a strong. I don't like.
I don't have like a great other selection. I feel like it just. This thing I thought about the first time, but then sort of put it in the back of my mind because it wasn't material to like the actual design discussions we were having. But I think it does have a pretty concrete technical meaning that might be misleading.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think when I used the term, I was thinking of it in the sense of like customer space. But I don't think that works either.
Talking about the difference between stacked build packs that run in a very different phase or life cycle phase versus the build packs that run in the normal build phase. Is that right?
No, they don't run in a different phase, but they run with different context, I would say.
Okay. It's sort of
other than extend. Yeah.
The thing we used to call build pack in this RFC, it introduces a more specific term that's like user space build pack. But I feel like user space is generally used to distinguish from kernel space, and build packs that run as root are still running in user space, right? Like root's a user. So I worry that it's like a little bit confusing.
No, I agree.
I don't have another great word for it. I've tried to think of one. Like in the past, thinking about the distinction between what we just called build packs and order build packs or meta build packs, I sort of wanted to do component and composite build packs. But stack build packs are still component build packs, but maybe that's okay. Like we can just decide that component build packs just refers to regular build packs. I kind of like that one.
It's fine with me.
We just leave on build packs, and then just if it's not prefixed by privileged
Yeah.
or root, can we get away with that, or is it too confusing?
No, I think not. As I was writing both the RFC and then the spec changes, there are, I think, some cases where you want to say build packs generically, and so I'm worried about that. Yeah, there's a lot of language in the spec that needed, like actually more than I realized, that needed to be qualified with at the time I was using user space.
Component regular or component, something like that.
I don't know. Regular sounds like such a cop out.
Yeah. Build pack.
Standard build packs, common build packs. I don't know. Bland build packs.
Standard's
Common is
not
interesting.
bad.
Just start throwing names out there. We'll see what lands.
Standard and actually common don't sound terrible to me. So.
Oh, look at that. Okay, we nailed it.
I'm happy with any of those.
All right, I'll think on it a bit. I'll probably just think about it after this meeting, and then I'll make an update and I'll let you know when it's there. Yeah, my hope is to spend some time working on both the spec and then potentially get started bringing that POC back into implementation over the break. So it'd be great if we can wrap some of this up before the end of the year.
I'll try to take a look before the end of the week.
Thanks.
Get approvals on there too.
That's all I had for StackPacks.
Awesome, and I think that takes us to the end of our agenda. Anything else last minute? Cool. Well, thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Great job leading the meeting, Javier.
Thanks, everyone.